She's just here for show. When it gets real, she'll freeze. One ranger had whispered earlier, smirking as they checked their rifles. Maya didn't answer. She simply stayed silent, adjusting her scope. Calm before the storm. Then, it all erupted. 10 rangers were pinned in a forest clearing. 15 enemy fighters closed in from every direction. The commander's voice broke through the radio. Tense. Panicked. And then, a single rifle cracked. One target dropped. Another shot. Another fall. In less than 6 minutes, the ambushers became the hunted. And the quiet woman they had all underestimated moved like a specter, turning the battlefield into her hunting ground. This is how Maya Spectre Cross rewrote everything they thought they knew. Long before the call sign ever found its way onto her file, Maya Cross's battlefield was the endless wilderness of Alaska. Here, winter was not a season. It was an adversary. Snowstorms could bury trails in an hour. Temperatures could slice through the thickest layers. And the silence was so deep, it could make a heartbeat sound like a drum. Her father, Major Daniel Cross, had once been the Army's most respected sniper. A man whose precision had saved lives in places most Americans had never heard of. 4 tours in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq, and a record of confirmed hits that other marksmen studied like scripture. Yet when he retired, he didn't choose a city with comfort and conveniences. He chose isolation. Their cabin sat on the side of a ridge that could only be reached by snowmobile in winter and a rattling dirt road in summer. For Daniel, this was not escape. It was the perfect training ground for his daughter. From the age of 7, Maya's education was split between correspondence schoolbooks and lessons that didn't exist in any classroom. Her math problems involved calculating the distance to a grazing moose through shifting wind currents. Her history lessons were stories of battles her father had fought not to glorify the kill, but to underline the cost of each shot. By the time she was 11, she could identify a caribou's age and condition from the imprint of its hoof in snow. At 13, she could tell the hour of the day by the length and sharpness of shadows cast across a valley. Her father's idea of summer camp was sending her out for 4 days with nothing but a pack, a knife, and a .22 rifle. Survival was not a game. It was muscle memory. The first firearm Daniel gave her wasn't the polished sniper rifle he'd used overseas, but an old hunting rifle with a warped stock. If you can make the bad one work, he said, the good one will feel like cheating. She learned to shoot lying in mud, kneeling in snowdrifts, bracing against tree trunks while wind gusts shoved against her shoulder. Her father's mantra was etched into her mind long before she could drive. A real sniper hits the target when everything's wrong. Maya entered the military with scores that shattered long-standing records. Her range results, her field craft, her instinct for reading terrain, all were beyond exceptional. Yet from day one, she lived under quiet skepticism. Jokes muttered behind her back. Instructors suggesting her performance was a fluke. Assignments to the sidelines while others went forward. That's when she met Commander Blake Morgan. A career ranger, 20 years in special operations, multiple Bronze Stars and a reputation for hard-won victories. To Morgan, women on the front line weren't progress, they were a liability. He never said it outright, but his orders made it clear. She's technically proficient, he'd tell other officers, but combat is different. Out there, you need someone who won't break under real pressure. Maya didn't argue. She didn't need speeches. She had patience. She studied Morgan's patterns, his tactics, and his blind spots. And she knew, when the moment came, she'd be ready. On paper, the mission was simple. Infiltrate a remote forest compound in eastern Afghanistan. Confirm the presence of a high-value target behind recent bombings. Eliminate him and his inner circle. The satellite imagery looked clean. The intercepted comms were sharp. Extraction and insertion points were plotted. Morgan believed it was straightforward. Maya didn't. The canopy was too dense. The paths too deliberate. Breaks in foliage too symmetrical. To her, it looked less like a stronghold and more like a trap. Intel estimated 20 hostiles. Maya's instinct said closer to 30. She raised concerns. Morgan dismissed them. "We'll hit hard and fast," he said. "That's how you win." She stayed quiet and built her own contingency. She memorized every slope, every break in the canopy, every potential sniper hide. When the assault began, the forest erupted. Gunfire from hidden positions. Explosions from unseen mortars. Morgan's men were caught in the open. From her perch 900 yards away, Maya saw the web tighten. She abandoned Morgan's plan and crawled to the rocky outcrop she'd scouted the night before. Her first target, a machine gunner at 623 yards. One breath. One shot. Silence. Next, a mortar spotter leaning just far enough to expose his side. Crack. Gone. Each shot wasn't chaos. It was clarity. Squad leaders, heavy gunners, ammo runners, she dismantled the ambush piece by piece. In 7 minutes, 15 fighters were down. The rest fled into the trees. The Rangers regrouped, alive because of one rifle. When the extraction helicopter lifted them out, dust and pine needles swirling, Morgan sat across from Maya. For the first time, he didn't see a liability. He saw the reason his team was alive. "Spectre," he said quietly. "I was wrong. You didn't just save us. You rewrote the fight." Operation Iron Tempest became a case study. Officially, decisive employment of adaptive sniper tactics. Unofficially, the 7-minute storm. Months later, Morgan was promoted. One of his first requests, Maya Cross as senior sniper instructor. She rewrote the sniper curriculum. Adaptive thinking. Broken conditions. Training under failure. Because the battlefield, like life, never offers perfection. And when her students, especially young women facing the same quiet doubt, walked off the range, they didn't just have skill. They had unshakable confidence. Not because someone told them they belonged. Because they had proven it. Maya Spectre Cross became more than a sniper. She became a reminder that talent hides in plain sight. That the quiet one, the underestimated one, may be the one who sees what no one else can and changes everything. True capability isn't revealed when conditions are perfect. It's revealed when everything goes wrong. And that's exactly when Spectre rose. Maya Cross never asked for a legend to walk in front of her, clearing brush and laying down tracks. Yet every room she stepped into felt pre-written, a hush, a glance, a mutter, Cross's kid. The name arrived before she did, like the snap of cold air when a door opens in deep winter. People imagine advantages, shortcuts, a golden rifle handed over velvet. No one pictured the things a name can also deliver, the weight of expectation, the suspicion that your hands are not your own, the unspoken bet that you'll fail spectacularly, and that failure will be a kind of justice. Alaska did not care about names. Alaska cared about bone and will. In the valley below their cabin, the spruce and birch crowded like soldiers on silent parade, trunks black with wet and dusted with hoarfrost. Wind spoke in the eaves, snow hissed across the ridge the way a fuse whispers along powder. That was Maya's school, not carpeted halls but a landscape that punished laziness and rewarded attention with something better than praise, survival. Her father, Major Daniel Cross, taught in lessons cut sharp as glass. He never raised his voice, he didn't have to. He had that stillness some men earn and most men imitate. If the wind is honest, he'd say, it tells you everything. If it lies, it's because you didn't listen. He'd tap a knuckle against the warped stock of the old .22. Make the bad one work first. The good one will feel like cheating. At 7, Maya learned to read snow like language. Soft splay meant caribou, neat punches meant fox, broken crescents meant a hare had sprinted in panic. At 9, Daniel set a tin cup on a stump, then had her shoot not the cup but the shadow it cast at noon, then at 2, then at 4, the distance is identical while the light changed everything. You're not aiming at a thing, he said. You're aiming at a relationship, wind to barrel, breath to trigger, heart to target. There were summers when the mosquitoes rose from the muskegging gray clouds and the air stuck to skin like wet paper. There were winters when metal burned the fingers raw and the sky lowered until it felt like the world was wearing a helmet. He'd send her out for 4 days with a pack that creaked and a knife that needed constant attention. Bring back fire. Bring back food. Bring back yourself. Survival wasn't bravado. It was choreography, deliberate steps in a place that punished improvisation. The first time she cried from frustration, she did it behind the woodpile where the chips smelled like sap and iron. Daniel found her there and sat without speaking, boots leaving square prints in powder. "You think tears are weakness," he said finally. "They're not. They're a sign you still care enough to keep going." He handed her a rag to wipe the rifle. Care is what steadies your hand when everything else shakes. Ranger school later felt familiar not because it was easy but because it was honest. Pain is honest. Weight is honest. The instructors gave her more of both. Rumors swarmed like midges, records, nepotism, a father's phone calls. The first week, a sergeant took her aside and said, almost kindly, "No one's gunning for you, Cross. We're just making sure you're real." The next morning, they stacked rocks in her ruck until the straps sang in protest. Up and down the ridge until her vision narrowed to a tunneled metronome, step, breathe, step, breathe. She adapted the way she had learned to in Alaska, by noticing the texture beneath the obvious. She mapped water points by the color shift in the grass. She cut calories in halves and thirds, banking a sliver of strength for when the range demanded precision. She learned the timbre of each instructor's approval and measured its absence as carefully as a miss. In the field, she was never the first to speak and rarely the last to move. She preferred the edge of a group, where she could see the whole plan pivot on something small, a missed radio check, a boot print angled wrong, a wind that smelled faintly of rain moving in from the west. The nickname arrived the way nicknames do, with a laugh, then a repetition, then a permanence no one could explain afterward. It began during a night movement when the squad's point man walked them into deadfall. Branches scraped, someone cursed, and the squad clumped like sheep. Maya peeled off the line and disappeared. No one noticed until they heard a single outcall at their 2 o'clock and saw the gloved hand rise from the blackberry, 1 finger, then 2, then a flat palm, stop, wait, shift. She had scouted a clean corridor through alder and fern, soft ground that wouldn't betray boot tread. They swung through without losing time. At the far side, the point man whispered, impressed and defensive at once, "She's like a specter." The word stuck because it felt true. She was there, and then not, and then there again, exactly where you wanted her. Specter never argued in the mess. She ate, listened, filed away the sentence under the jokes, "You're technically proficient. Combat is different." She knew what they were really saying. They were saying, pressure belongs to men. She let it sit inside her rib cage like a small smooth stone, cool and heavy. Pressure doesn't belong to anyone, it belongs to the moment. The moment, she had learned, is subject to negotiation. On the range, her groups were tight enough to frighten the paper backers. But it was the broken drills she loved, when instructors soaked you in ice water and demanded a clean 3-round cadence, when a buddy pounded your shoulder between shots, when a crosswind bullied the bullet and you had to bully it back with math and memory. The old mantra rose like breath on cold, a Rayal sniper hits the target when everything's wrong. She didn't just memorize it, she practiced being the person who believed it. At night, when the others slept the black sleep of exhaustion, she sometimes lay awake and thought of the silence back home, the kind of silence that made a heartbeat sound like a hammer in a small room. She missed it. She didn't. Longing is complicated when your childhood smelled like gun oil and juniper and your lullabies were weather patterns. She understood now that the wilderness hadn't isolated her from people, it had prepared her to see them with unflinching clarity. Out here, in uniforms and bravado, most weren't cruel. They were afraid of being average. Her presence threatened that fear. It wasn't personal. It was arithmetic. There was one instructor, a thin man with a permanent squint, who tried to trip her with kindness. "You don't have to win every lane," he told her softly. "It's enough to pass." She nodded and thanked him and then went out and won the lane. Not to punish him. To keep faith with that kid in Alaska who had shot shadows at 4 in the afternoon and learned that light is not the enemy, misunderstanding is. By the end of the cycle, respect didn't arrive as a speech. It arrived as a series of adjustments no one commented on, radios handed to her without fuss, questions directed at her first, a place opened for her at the map table. When a new recruit joked about specters and ghost stories, the squad's medic said, "Not unkindly, you'll get it." And the recruit did, on a wet morning when they were 2 hours behind, tempers fraying, and Maya shifted them 10 degrees east to a saddle that saved their feet and their time. Not magic. Work. She rode home rarely. When she did, Daniel's replies were sparse, 2, 3 lines that felt like river stones, smooth, heavy, selected. Proud. Keep your eye honest. Don't let instruction replace judgment. She read the last sentence twice and then a third time in the yellow light of the barracks. Instruction is a scaffold. Judgment is the house. The day the cadre posted top scores, someone whistled. Her name sat at the top of 2 columns and second in a third. The squinting instructor clapped once, a sharp sound. "Real enough for you?" someone asked the room. No one answered. In the noisy quiet that followed, Maya felt no triumph, only a widening of the path ahead, steep and complicated, the way the ridge near the cabin always felt steeper once you realized what lay beyond it, more ridge, more weather, more chances to be wrong in ways that mattered. Legacy, she realized, isn't a banner you carry. It's a question that follows. Are you the story they tell about you, or are you the person who shows up when the wind turns? She didn't know yet. She only knew how to lace her boots, check her sling, and step into the trees without announcing herself, present, patient, prepared to negotiate the moment until it told the truth. The valley had no name on American maps. Just a code, a grid reference, a shaded box on satellite printouts. To the men who lived there, it was home, a fortress shaped not of concrete and wire but of stone, shadow, and fear. Supply convoys that tried to cross its narrow passes rarely came out intact. Some vanished altogether, swallowed by the ridges. The whispers back at headquarters called it the wolf's den. Maya didn't need whispers. She trusted her eyes. And the valley looked wrong. It began with the ridgelines. Too symmetrical. Paths that twisted not naturally but deliberately, as if someone had carved shortcuts and then disguised them. From the insertion point, she saw breaks in the canopy where the treeline dipped at suspicious intervals. Firing lanes, not accidents. She said as much during the briefing. Intel estimates 20 fighters, Commander Henshaw said. A square-jawed veteran who believed speed solved everything. We come in hard at night, sweep the compound, extract at dawn. Maya leaned over the satellite photos, tracing a fingertip across the shadows. Those treelines are too clean. At least 30. Probably more. And if they know we're coming, the pass will be wired. Henshaw didn't argue. He dismissed. We've got air support on standby. No problem. She knew better. Air support didn't help if you were already in the kill zone. She remembered her father's voice, gravel thick in memory, if it looks too easy, you're already in the trap. That night, under a sky stretched thin with stars, the unit moved. 12 Rangers, 1 attached interpreter, and Maya, the quiet sniper at the rear, her rifle wrapped in burlap strips that broke up the shape. The canyon walls rose around them like frozen waves. Every sound multiplied, a clatter of stone under boot became thunder, a cough rolled like distant artillery. At first, nothing. Just the crunch of boots, the occasional hiss of a radio. Maya's nerves weren't shot, no, they were tuned. Too tuned. The silence pressed against her ribs like a weight. Then the valley exhaled. A roar, a bloom of fire. The pass behind them erupted, stones and flame collapsing into a wall that cut off retreat. Figures appeared on the ridges, dark shapes against darker sky, rifles spitting orange. The first ranger went down before he'd even turned. Chaos poured through the formation. Contact left. Contact right. Henshaw's voice broke the night, strained, panicked. Bullets struck sparks from rock. Mortar tubes thudded from somewhere higher. Maya was already moving. She didn't wait for orders. Orders had failed the moment they entered the valley. She crawled sideways, sliding into a crevice between rocks slick with lichen. From there, she could see the whole field like a board. Her pulse slowed, her breath measured. The trap was perfect. Which meant it could be dismantled. Her first shot cut the thread. A machine gunner on the ridge, 623 yards, wind quartering left, target half exposed. She squeezed. The man folded. His weapon clattered, silent in the roar. Next, the mortar spotter, leaning out just enough to glimpse the field. Crack. His silhouette jerked, toppled. Every shot was a stitch pulled loose. She worked methodically, squad leaders barking orders, ammo runners dashing between rocks, heavy gunners pivoting barrels. She broke the ambush piece by piece, each shot unraveling the design. "Who the hell?" someone gasped over the radio. "They're dropping fast." It wasn't fast. It was deliberate. To Maya, time stretched. Each trigger pull was a breath, each correction a whisper of numbers in her mind. Range, wind, elevation. But deeper. Then math was instinct, the kind honed in Alaska's ridges, the feel of air on her cheek, the way shadows shifted against stone. 7 minutes. That's all it took. 15 fighters lay silent in the dirt and rock. The rest broke, fleeing into the trees. The valley, moments ago a snare, fell eerily quiet. The Rangers regrouped, gasping, bloodied, but alive. They looked around as if expecting the enemy to return. Instead, their eyes settled on Maya. The quiet one. The one Henshaw had dismissed. She was still prone on the rock, barrel cooling, eyes unblinking. When the extraction bird churned dust into the valley floor, Henshaw climbed aboard last. Across from him, Maya sat expressionless, rifle across her knees. He stared at her for a long time, the rotors drowning his thoughts. Finally, he spoke, not to the team, not to command, but to her. "Spectre," he said, the word low, certain. "I was wrong." The others didn't cheer. They didn't need to. They just looked at her differently, no longer as the tag-along, no longer as a question mark. She wasn't a fluke. She was the reason they were breathing. Back at headquarters, the mission was written up in cold, sanitized language, decisive employment of adaptive sniper tactics in compromised terrain. But the soldiers had another name for it. The 7-minute storm. For Maya, it wasn't glory. It was confirmation of something her father had always said. You prove who you are when everything is wrong. That night, alone in her bunk, she wrote a single line in her journal before sleep claimed her. The trap will always be there. The difference is whether you're the prey, or the one waiting in the shadows. The email came without ceremony, assignment approved. Report to sniper school as senior instructor. Commander Morgan's name in the CC line was all the explanation she needed. Teaching wasn't a step back. It was a different battlefield. The school stretched across red dirt and scrub. Mirage shimmered above steel, and paper targets flapped like ghosts. Maya walked in, and the room quieted. Some knew her as the sniper from the 7-minute storm. Others just saw a woman in a place where myths usually died. Morgan met her in the hall. "I didn't bring you here to be a mascot," he said. "Doctrine goes soft without friction. Make it sharp." She did. The existing curriculum was solid but too safe. Too clean. She rewrote it. Rifles mis-zeroed without warning. Heart rate drills where students sprinted before shooting at 600 yards. No rangefinders, only eyes, smoke, and grass heads bending in wind. The battlefield will never give you perfect conditions, she told them. So I won't either. At first, they resented her. Then, slowly, they understood. Ruiz, broad-shouldered and quiet, learned patience. Park, underestimated from day one, proved sharper than anyone. Ellis, confident until the first real wind shift, discovered humility. Each failure was a scar added to skill. She gave them the one-round day, a single bullet, 6 hours to decide when to fire. The range turned into a church, silent, reverent. Ruiz waited, trusted the leaves, and hit steel with a note that echoed through his chest. Park shot shadows as she once had, patient and exact. Ellis missed, then stayed behind to study the wind until dusk. By the end, they no longer measured themselves against her. They measured themselves against the storm. Not everyone approved. A senior instructor accused her of playing games. They need fundamentals. They have fundamentals, she replied. I'm teaching them judgment. Graduation arrived under hard sun. Certificates, applause, photos. Yet the real legacy wasn't in the speeches. It was in the way the recruits stood taller, calmer, certain. They no longer looked like students. They looked like snipers. Maya stayed after, policing brass with the detail. She picked up a spent case, turned it in her hand, and felt the bite mark of the extractor, proof that even the smallest part of the cycle mattered. On the training board, she wrote one last card for the next class. We don't train for the perfect shot. We train for the only shot. That became her mark. Not medals. Not headlines. A line carried forward by every student who walked the lanes. A lesson whispered when conditions failed, when the plan collapsed, when everything went wrong. Spectre wasn't just a sniper anymore. She was a reminder that talent hides in silence, that strength often wears doubt like a cloak, and that true capability reveals itself only when the world refuses to cooperate. And long after she left that range, when recruits turned soldiers faced their own storms, her words returned with the weight of truth. The battlefield doesn't ask if you belong. It asks if you endure. The answer is in the shot you take when everything is wrong.